chilly stillness of an almost empty station. As the fog crept over the tracks like it was trying to hide whatever lay ahead, Ethan watched the last train pull away. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no whispered promises carried by the wind. Just him and that silence, heavier than words could ever describe. Deep down, he knew that this departure wasn't just about a train or about what he was leaving behind. It was about starting over, without a clue where his own footsteps might lead. In his eyes, Ethan carried a pain that many know but few can name. The weight of unspoken decisions, of waits that stretched on too long, of dreams that almost gave up before they were even born. And it was there, in the space between departures and silence, that the journey began. A journey not guided by maps or schedules, but by inner choices and unexpected encounters. What he was looking for wasn't clear. Not yet. Maybe it was peace, maybe meaning, or maybe just the strength to survive the emptiness that remained. But something was driving him forward, and that something was bigger than the pain. How many times have we found ourselves in the same place? Stuck in some nameless station in life, watching opportunities slip by, unsure whether it's time to jump in or just wait a little longer? Ethan's story is, in truth, a quiet mirror of our own searching. Because at some point, we all wrestle with that silent restlessness. The sense that there's something more beyond, but fear or exhaustion makes us pause. And the curious thing is, more often than not, it isn't the world outside that holds us back, but the battles we fight within ourselves. What Ethan didn't know yet, and maybe you don't either, is that the quietest moments often carry the most powerful voices. The ones that come from within. The ones that show us that what looks like the end of the line might actually be the start of a new path. The first town Ethan stopped in felt as lost as he did. Old houses, narrow streets, and a little cafe at the end of the square that served more memories than coffee. That's where he met Grace, a soft-spoken woman with eyes that saw far beyond words. Without asking too much, she simply said, "Sometimes you have to stop to hear what your soul has been screaming." Ethan didn't fully grasp it, but something in her quiet wisdom struck a chord. For days he watched her tend a small garden, nurturing flowers winter had already written off. They need to feel loved, even when they look dead on the outside, she told him. That idea stuck with Ethan. How many times had he stopped caring for something just because it seemed beyond saving? Grace didn't hand him answers, but she gave him his first key. To care for what still has the chance to bloom, even when everything feels barren. As he continued on, Ethan faced nights filled with uncertainty and days when his reflection felt like a stranger. On a deserted road, after his car broke down in the middle of nowhere, he met Daniel, a mechanic with a heavy past and a surprisingly light heart. While calmly fixing the car, Daniel opened up about his own story. Years of bitterness, wrong turns, a prison sentence both literal and spiritual. But what struck Ethan the most was how Daniel spoke of forgiveness, not as something you give to others, but as a gift you offer yourself. "You can't keep driving if the engine of guilt keeps roaring inside," he said. That moment shifted something in Ethan. He began to realize that the weight he carried wasn't in his trunk, it was in his heart. Old guilt, unspoken words, unmet expectations, all of it heavier than any suitcase. Internal battles, however, don't get resolved with heartfelt conversations alone. Even after moving on, Ethan often found himself stuck in the middle of his own choices. In a small mountain village, he met a boy named Liam, who, despite his young age, was facing a rare illness with a serene faith and a disarming joy. "I don't know how long I'll live," the boy said with a wide smile, "but I know I'm alive today, and that's a lot." Ethan didn't say a word. The lightness in that boy's spirit seemed to challenge his constant need for answers. For the first time, Ethan wondered if he'd been so busy trying to understand everything that he'd forgotten to simply live. Now, the struggle was against lost time, the urgency to arrive somewhere without first learning how to walk with purpose. Liam, without even meaning to, had taught him the value of presence, of gratitude for the now, of the courage to smile even when the end feels near. Later, when Ethan already felt a little lighter, he met Emma, an artist living alone by the sea. She painted vivid, intense canvases and claimed her art was her way of speaking with God. When she caught Ethan admiring one of her paintings, a sky split open by golden light, she commented, "That's the color of a new beginning." Emma spoke to him about losses that can't be undone, but can be transformed, about loves that leave, yet plant seeds, about how sometimes God's silence isn't absence, it's preparation. And slowly, the pieces began to fall into place. Ethan realized that every meeting, every pain, every pause carried a message. That life's truest teachers rarely come with titles or ready-made answers. Sometimes they show up as a smile, a simple phrase, or a quiet moment in front of an unfinished painting. It was as if God had been speaking the whole time. Ethan just needed to stop and listen. When he finally returned to the same station where everything had started, Ethan understood. He hadn't come back because life had gone back to normal. He had changed. The silence that once made him uncomfortable now carried a different voice, a steady, softer one from within. Sitting on the same bench, watching the tracks ahead, he realized it wasn't the world that had to change. It was how he looked at it. The pain he had carried no longer felt like a prison, but a reminder of everything he had overcome. For the first time in a long while, Ethan wasn't waiting for a train to take him somewhere far away. He was there, not to leave, but to stay, fully present. And it was in that moment, with the wind brushing against his face and peace filling his chest, that he finally understood. His journey was never about finding something out there. It was about finding himself in the midst of the chaos. Every encounter, every story, every silence now formed a larger picture, as if everything had been orchestrated from the very beginning to bring him here. Grace had taught him not to give up on what can still bloom. Daniel had shown him that forgiveness is a bridge to freedom. Liam had awakened in him the beauty of the present moment, and Emma, the faith to begin again. But what Ethan discovered above all else was this: no matter how much we try to plan or run away, life always finds a way to teach us as long as we're willing to listen. Yes, the pain left marks, but now they were scars that told a story of strength, not defeat. And he finally understood that growing up often means accepting we won't have all the answers, yet choosing to walk forward anyway, with courage. Ethan no longer needed guarantees or grand signs. What he had was a quiet certainty that he was on the right path. What he'd searched for so desperately outside was now within. The voice of wisdom hadn't come as a dramatic revelation, but as a seed planted in each lived challenge, now blooming in the shape of peace. He hadn't become perfect, but he had become awake, and that awareness changed everything. Because when the soul awakens, even pain turns into direction. And in the spaces between arrivals and silences, Ethan discovered the greatest gift of all, the ability to walk lightly, even through the unknown. Ethan's journey reminds us of something essential. Often it's not the destination that transforms us, but the path itself, when we walk it with an open heart. Each challenge, each silence, each seemingly random encounter carries a greater message, an opportunity for growth, healing, and inner awakening. And the same is true for you. Maybe today you're waiting for a sign or feeling lost between departures and doubts. But Ethan's story shows us that even the grayest days can hold profound revelations. You just have to be present, willing to listen, and most of all, keep going. Because wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers in the most ordinary moments. And when we choose to listen, we begin to see life through different eyes. It's in that quiet listening that we find the truest answers. May this story be a reminder for your own journey. You are not alone, even when the silence feels absolute. Everything you've lived, everything you've faced, can be transformed into light if you allow the experience to teach you, the pain to shape you, and love to lead the way. And if today you find yourself in one of life's stations, unsure of the next step, breathe. Maybe it's not time to leave, but time to stay and listen. The journey goes on and there's always something new to be revealed. We'll meet again in the next reflection, where stories like yours continue to guide us with wisdom, faith, and hope.